Hello everyone, welcome to one of the talks of the online event series Museum for All. Today the talk will be given by Philippa Douglas. She is the Assistant Curator of Live Programmes at Nottingham Contemporary. She is also the curator from Oxford and has been previously held positions at National Galleries and Modern Art Oxford. I will just say a few words about our organization, and after Philippa will start saying more things about the Nottingham Contemporary Museum. The Centre for the Development of Museums, Heritage and Culture, or shortly MuseumSFORALL, is a community-based center and museum-based approach in Durrës, Albania, that aims to work closely with communities for increasing cultural awareness in society and turning them into future actors of social change and their designation as European citizens. This online events series has started from September 2022 with museum experts and cultural professionals on topics of accessible and inclusive museums from United Kingdom. This is a very short introduction about the organization and also this program. Hi, Philippa.
Hi, thank you for the introduction. So hi everyone, I'm Philippa, I'm the Assistant Curator of Live Programmes at Nottingham Contemporary. So I'm just going to start by talking a little bit about the organisation and then through some of our current projects and move on to some of the accessibility measures we have in place as an organisation. So this is a start by showing an image of our building. So I don't know if anyone's visited our site, but this was obviously taken on one of the rare sunny days in the UK. But it's a purpose-built building from 2009. I'll just share some information about it here. So, sorry, I've just moved myself. So Nottingham Contemporary opened in 2009 and we've welcomed 2 million people and presented more than 50 exhibitions. We're renowned for our innovative research and learning programmes, and our building is one of the largest contemporary art institutions in the UK. We have the privilege of being joint funded by the 2 universities that we partner with, and our purpose-built venue was made possible also through capital funding from Arts Council England, Nottingham City Council and the East Midlands Development Agency. As well as our Greater Nottingham Partnership. So the building takes inspiration from the historic lace market, which is part of the city, and references the design of warehouses that service Nottingham's famous lace industry. So you can't really see from the picture, but on the sort of ridges that make up the building, they feature a 19th century cherry blossom lace design by Richard Birkin, which was discovered in a time capsule which was buried underneath the site when they were making the building. And we have the position of being on top of sandstone caves that were hand carved. And so the building itself is sort of set into a cliff face, which gives it a bit of an irregular structure and makes it seem much larger on the inside than it is on the outside. By maximising the use of the available site, and it sits nicely within the existing skyline. And so just a bit of information on our exhibitions programme. Our ambitious exhibitions of international art stimulate important discussion about culture and society. We regularly present large thematic exhibitions, such as the Places Here in 2017, which was a landmark survey of Black British art, as well as the States of America in the same year, which was the largest ever survey of American photography in the UK, and From Ear to Eye, which was an exploration of the politics of listening across the Arab world. So we support artists at different stages of their career, from presenting first-time solo shows in the UK to surveys of internationally renowned figures, and many of our exhibitions go on to tour nationally and internationally. We often commission major new works as well, from different artists, and a number of these have been acquired by major collections. So I'm going to start by talking about our current exhibiting artist, Carolyn Nazard. So here's an image. This one isn't actually at Nottingham Contemporary, It's from when the works were previously installed at the Walker Art Centre. And so in Carolyn's exhibition, The Long Take, it's the first UK solo presentation of their work. And Carolyn's an artist that works across disciplines and mediums to explore the social and political dimensions of care with a focus on accessibility. The exhibition is experienced within a stage black box gallery. The images here make it seem very light, but actually when you enter the space, it's extremely dark, and lots of our gallery assistants have to guide visitors by torch to sort of access the artwork. And yeah, and the flooring is also completely covered with black vinyl flooring mats, like you would typically find in a dance studio, which is quite nice because you can see sort of like the traces of the visitors going through. And you'll notice the seating, which is part of this exhibition. So Carolyn specifically designed seating using our own institutional benches to make them more accessible. So you can see here the ones from the Walker Art Centre. The white bench is the original gallery institutional bench, and then the accessibility measures that Carolyn's added on are sort of the cushioning that you can see, as well as the heightening here, and also an additional back to make it more comfortable. So within the space of 4 of the standard Nottingham Contemporary gallery benches, which Carolyn has altered using the cushioning, backrest, height adjustments. And in doing so, the seating has become more suitable for longer stays and more welcoming for visitors with varying access needs. And so you can also see the 3 television screens here, which are part of a work called Lean's Reverses. And this work responds to the legacy of dance for the camera, considered through the lens of accessibility as a creative tool. So the exhibition is anchored by a sound installation made from a recorded reading of a dance score and the sound of a dancer's movement and breath, as well as an audio description. So these 3 screens show the scores, a description of the sort of breath of the dancer and the dancer's movements, and then the third one is Carolyn's own written audio description of the dance. This work intentionally blurs the boundaries between instruction, description, and translation, asking us to consider where and in what form an artwork resides by presenting a dance work sonically rather than visually. The artist considers how a performance might be communicated beyond its image and why the visual has been the default and primary vehicle for aesthetic experience. It also creates a lot of issues when you're trying to describe the exhibition, because everyone sort of defaults to cited terms. So it's been sort of quite interesting trying to describe something that you're not seeing, which you normally would for a dance work or performance. So I'm just going to show you some stills from the works that would be on the 3 screens if we were in the gallery space. So screen 1 is the score that was written by Carolyn, and it's recited as a written caption. Carolyn gave the original dance score to their collaborator in dancer and choreographer Jeroen Herman, and filmed his performance, and the performance was then audio described. So what we're seeing is the instruction giving to the dancer here. And then if we move on to the second one, so this is the sound of the dancer's movement. So when you're in the space, you're sort of hearing everything all at once, the score being announced, the dancer's breath and movement, as well as Carolyn's own audio description. And then if we move on to slide 3, so this is Carolyn's audio description of the dancer's performance, and also recited as a written caption. Using text and sound rather than moving image, Carolyn encouraged us to think about the ways that artworks are made accessible, as well as the often unseen networks of care, labour and friendship that make collaborative endeavours possible. This was sort of my first time encountering audio description as well, in such a direct way, and it was quite interesting hearing Carolyn talk about the work, because I originally thought that audio descriptive language was quite a standardized format, but actually the piece is about sort of 18 minutes long of video, and Carolyn uses some of their own personal sort of influences in the description. It wasn't given to us in any of the stills, unfortunately, but she describes at one point the dancers' movements as a Mary J. Blige two-step, or get your eagle on, and things like that, to describe the dance moves, which are personal references and not necessarily in sort of what I thought would be the standardized language of audio description. So I'm actually just going to play the audio description from the gallery to see if you can sort of get a sense of the work that way.
Long Take is housed in a large, irregularly shaped, painted black room, devoid of natural light. Cocooned in darkness, the space rejects a visual focal point. Instead, we are invited into a listening chamber. 3 television monitors stand shoulder to shoulder on the floor in the center of the room. The heavy black devices transmit no moving images apart from the thin, pale glow of closed captions along the bottom of the screens. This is Lean's Reverses, dance choreography translated into sound, creative captions, and audio description in an 18-minute piece split across the 3 screens. Audio pours into the room via 12 speakers positioned on the ceiling at even intervals. Black soundproof panels just over a metre high line the walls, around 9 on the longest wall and 3 on the back wall. They're firm and thick to the touch. 4 Nottingham Contemporary gallery benches, titled Institutional Seat 5 to 8, modified by Lazard with backrests, cushioning and height adjustments, are arranged around the large expanse of space, 2 around the perimeter of the room, 1 directly facing the monitors, and the last in the gallery lobby by the entrance to the exhibition. If you move from one bench to another, you will notice the textural difference of the floor, the lightness underfoot, and the support. Black Marley roll-out vinyl floor mats, usually found in dance studios, cover the ground, transforming the space into both practice hall and stage. This portable flooring, a work titled Surround Sound, bears the marks and scuffs and tracks of those who've passed over it, a record of the improvised or unconscious choreography of dancers, visitors, gallery staff, prams, wheelchairs, and canes.
That was Elaine Joseph, who we've recently done a workshop with on audio description. Sorry, trying to get back to the presentation. Sorry, I just stopped sharing for a second. I don't know why it's just when I get back to the presentation, I don't know why it's going on. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we did the workshop with Elaine Joseph about audio description, and it's in a way audio sort of adds more to the experience. I always thought of it as being sort of a replacement for the visual representation of something, but actually audio description can be sort of like quite poetic and enhance the experience in a lot of ways. And in terms of access measures for this exhibition, we also we normally do sort of large print notes and things like that, but for this exhibition we also added in both text and digital braille formats for visitors that want to access the exhibition that way. And so access isn't just embedded in the artwork for this exhibition. Something else we're doing as an institution is extending sort of access requirements to artists. So when we're working with different artists, we'll send them an access rider. Nottingham Contemporary believes in the social model of disability, and it's committed to creating the best possible working environment for artists. So the access rider is a form that's sent to all artists we work with, and help us identify the best ways to provide what the artist needs in terms of access, communication, and the environment that they work in. So the form that we send out is broken down into several sections. So these are general, so this could be the artist's pronouns, and then communication and hearing support if they need any special requirements, as well as physical environmental, if we can adjust the gallery space in some way to make it easier for them to access. This also applies for hotels as well, like what type of accommodation they need for their physical access needs, and how we can best support them that way, as well as other additional sort of sighted support and neurodiversity. This can be sort of fairly open-ended in terms of questioning, and often neurodiverse artists will already have their own access riders, which they send us. And some of the information can be quite vague. And so to best support the artist, it involves sort of like a lot of checking in and making sure we're meeting their needs as an institution. And then the other sections are mental health and well-being, as well as religion and beliefs. And yeah, I touched on earlier, sort of the travel and accommodation aspects of them. And then another project that we've been doing is Caption Conscious Ecology. So this was a programme of events and talks, as well as commissions that advocate for the role of captioning in the production and display of moving image works. So the series invited artists and art organisations to explore how and why to embed captioning in artistic and curatorial practice. So as we've seen in Carolyn's work, the captioning itself is a major part of the artwork, if not the work itself. And so this Caption Conscious Ecology work began in 2021 with a series of online talks and workshops that brought in scholars from deaf studies and critical disability studies together with artists and access workers. Our initial events prompted conversation on the history and function of, as well as practical provision and creative potentiality of captioning. So one organisation that we work with that expands on the creative potentiality of captioning is Collective Text, my mistake. And they're an organisation with a collaborative working process to support accessibility in the arts and film through creative captioning, audio description and interpretation. So if I move to the next slide, so this is a film we screened by Rosa Johanna Uddo called Black Poirot. And Rosa worked with Collective Text to produce this film. So you can see some of their captioning work here. It's really worth watching if you have the time and are able to do so. So instead of the captioning being sort of just plain text along the bottom, they really incorporate it into the work and make it sort of a beautiful part of the piece. So you can see here it's all in blue, and then you have sort of this almost like cartoon-like caption here as well. So they really sort of try and embed it and in a way that enhances the work, much like the audio description. It sort of embellishes on the work rather than being a standard access provision. Which leads us on to thinking about audiences and sort of the type of accessible interpretation that we're able to offer, as well as sort of which communities we're trying to target with the way we speak to our audiences. So really good interpretation is accessible to all, but also specifically tailored to the needs of different groups. We try to make interpretation that's suitable for everyone, from toddlers to the elderly, from regular visitors and people who may not have ever visited an art gallery before. Ideally, interpretation would be accessible so that everyone can enjoy their visit or experience. However, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. And this is why it's important to offer multiple entry points and support the many ways that people access information. So some things to consider in terms of making the exhibitions accessible to multiple audiences are low-level displays, so that they're accessible by wheelchair users, the emphasis on interactivity, bright colours and different designs, which I'll touch on when I talk about the next project, as well as physical access. A lot of exhibition planning does sort of focus on weight limits and wheelchair access routes and turning circles and things like that to make sure that the space is laid out in an accessible way. As well as seating, we do offer the standard institutional benches, but at the moment we also have the accessible seating that Carolyn has brought in, and we also have stools and things like that, so the visitors have access to seating when they're visiting the gallery. Large print labels, which I'll touch on later on as well, and the consideration around the audio and visual components, like the audio description that I was saying. Multiple languages I'll come to later on as well, because that is something that we do as an institution. And then the use of audio-visual material available, captioning, which I've just touched on, and I'll come later to online content. So the next exhibition I'm going to talk about is The Places We Imagine, which was collaboratively devised by our learning and exhibitions team, and as well as being developed and realised in conversation with families, schools, groups, and young people within the Schools of Tomorrow programme. All of the schools were within the local area for this development. And the inspiration for the exhibition was a drawing by the Italian-Brazilian architect Lina Bobardi, which you can see here. So this colourful design is from 1968 and imagines a series of vast structures in front of the Museum of Art, Sao Paulo. As though the structures are as though imagined by children. However, the utopian play space that Bobardi designed was never actually built. And so for the places that we imagine, inspired by this drawing and together with the design collective Assemble, we began to ask questions like, what would Bobardi's vision look like? What if children could be the architects of their own play? Could their language be used to challenge how public space is owned and occupied? And how then can we reimagine galleries, play and education? So it led us to making Lina Bobardi's vision within the gallery in collaboration with the local school. So here's a plan of a gallery map with the 3 sculptures that were taken from the drawing. So we did this one, which is Big Red. The fun house was one of our own designs in collaboration with the children, and then the menagerie, which I think is this one, which is the roundabout-like structure there, which can be seen here across the 2 galleries. So the project was more than 3 years in the making, and to bring to life Bobardi's unrealised vision for a fantastical playground, through a series of 3 large-scale play sculptures, which you see here, and I'll move on to show some more photos of them in a second. So the exhibition reimagines Bobardi's vision across 2 galleries, and the 2 large-scale play sculptures directly inspired by the drawing. And the third one I mentioned is the Fun House, which was designed in collaboration with children from local schools as part of the Schools of Tomorrow programme. So that's Big Red, the menagerie, were directly inspired by Bobardi's drawing, and the Fun House was the school's one. So if I move on to show a picture of, so this is Big Red. It was actually extremely tall in the gallery space. I don't think this photo does it justice, with the multiple slides coming out the sides of it. The exhibition you would think would be largely designed for children, but adults enjoyed it just as much, as you can tell from this photo. I think it's actually mostly adults using the slides there. Actually, this exhibition was on when I came for my interview at Nottingham Contemporary, and I remember going to see it, sort of get an idea of the exhibitions beforehand, and it was actually only adults in the space, using it as a playground, no children in sight. I touched on earlier that these were designed in collaboration with the school as part of the Schools of Tomorrow programme, which includes 8 schools from across Nottingham, to explore these questions and bring Bobardi's vision to life. Assemble, the design collective, worked closely with resident artists as well as children at 3 schools, while engaging more broadly with the inquiries of the wider Schools of Tomorrow programme. So children's actions, ideas and responses were at the heart of these conversations. If I move on to show some images of the menagerie. So these are large sort of like foam animals. We still have some of them at the gallery, but they were arranged in sort of a roundabout in the larger area of the galleries, and everything in the exhibition was sort of fully movable. So children could play with them as much as they want. There was no sort of like right or wrong way to interact with the exhibition. I think the only rule was no shoes. At each school, so the children's actions, ideas and responses were at the heart of the conversations when designing this exhibition. and the designs and these are designs both for and by the city's children. At each school, Assemble work closely with a resident artist for the children to explore different themes around play. And it was really up to the children to sort of open up the conversation and look at new ways of being in the museum, and for children and adults alike. And lots of the concerns that were sort of raised initially about this project, like that it would be too noisy, it would lead to the children touching other exhibits, because this was just across one of the gallery spaces, and there was an exhibition taking place in the other two galleries. So the concern was sort of, if you encourage children to interact and touch things, that might transition over to the artworks that aren't meant to be touched and interact with, or that it would be too loud and people wouldn't be able to take in the other two exhibitions. But actually neither of those concerns were valid, and it was actually a really lovely project, and if anything, it encouraged the children's interaction with the other exhibitions more. So if I move on to the last one, which is the fun house, so this is quite an interactive one. So you can see the sort of padded bags that the children are climbing on. So underneath is sort of a purpose-built wooden frame, and with sort of padding around, and the recordings were taken of the children throughout the project, and so you can, when you press on certain areas of the padding, you can it activates sort of a speaker, and you can hear the children laughing or different prompts for play and that sort of thing, which was really nice. And the giant ball at the top was actually movable, so you can see here it's been completely taken off the top of the fun house and made to move around the exhibition. So I think that the team did a really good job of bringing Bobardi's vision to life and created a really interactive and fun sort of playground for the exhibition. It was also supported by a more academic series of talks, the Adventure Playground series, which brought in academics that sort of focused on ideas of play and reflected on the societal issues as well. So it was a real sort of all-round exhibition in terms of looking at play from different angles, from academic perspectives, as well as being child-led in a lot of ways. And so part of the interactive element of the exhibition was a prompt wall. So there were some prompts already put in by the children and other people that worked on the exhibition, sort of about how to play in the gallery, and visitors were also invited to leave their own prompts as well. So you can see a few of those here, and they were all collected at the end. The places we imagine was made to be a dynamic environment, and so throughout the entire show, the partner schools sort of left their prompts for different activities they did in the galleries. And then this is also a series that came from that exhibition, which is these prints were sold in the shop to fundraise for the schools that were involved, and they're different play prompts, which were developed with primary school, with a local primary school, by artist Laura Elder for a practice of knowledge project. So again, sort of like expanding on the exhibition and having a fundraising community element there as well. And something else we did for this exhibition in terms of access, excuse me, were the family explorer bags. So these were available at reception throughout the exhibition to sort of support the sensory experience of the exhibitions, and again encourage younger people to visit the gallery and further audience participation. And so in terms of audiences and encouraging participation, another area of expanded programming we do is our welcome walkthroughs. So these happen at the beginning of every exhibition and are designed to be create a welcome environment for visitors. I'm just going to play the intro from Natel, because I think our communities programmer, because I'm sure she does a better introduction than I'm doing here. So bear with me a second.
So this walkthrough is part of our series of walkthroughs where we move around the gallery together, particularly with partners and academics and artists and part of our staff team, to look at the exhibitions together. This welcome walkthrough is the very first walkthrough of every season, and it's a place to ask questions a place where there's no assumed knowledge or assumptions about what people do or don't know. And it's a place to share opinions and thoughts about the artworks that we see in the galleries. So in Gallery 1, we'll look at the work of Carolyn.
Yeah, so that was just a sort of beginning overview of, sorry, go to the next slide. An overview of what we do for the welcome walkthrough. So really designed to be a community-based activity where we invite everyone in and start the exhibition season off right, so they feel welcomed and comfortable visiting the rest of the show for the season. Which brings me on to conversation, which is a really important element of interpretation and sort of our expanded programming around the exhibitions. So all interpretation is communication, and conversations are the most memorable form of communication. Sorry, I don't know why I keep skipping to the next slide, which is an audience member. So something to think about in terms of creating conversations around the exhibition. How much text did you read last time you went to a gallery or a museum? While we cherish traditional interpretive media such as panels, guidebooks, programmes, the reality is that our visitors are more likely to remember and enjoy the information we give them when it's communicated by people. So whether it's something like a welcome walkthrough or a really good interaction with a gallery assistant, it's something we really want to encourage as an institution. So to some extent technology can help. We do put the walkthroughs online, so they're made available for everyone. So something to think about is interactive videos and audio guides, as well as live streamed events. But when using technology, it's important to remember the value of a conversational style of communication to make people feel welcomed. And then, as I said earlier, about the gallery assistants, a knowledgeable and friendly gallery assistant, presenter, curator, or anyone across the organisation will be able to offer their own reading of the subject, and is really important for creating those good sort of audience interactions. I'm just going to play a visitor interview from the walkthrough that Natel introduced in the previous slide, to sort of highlight some of these points.
I came to the gallery today for the welcome walkthrough, and came with certain expectations that it might be, you know, a bit beyond me or a bit elitist or whatever, and found it was the complete opposite. It was very welcoming, it was very warm. The person who introduced the session gave us a great icebreaker. We did a bit of meditation. Everyone felt calm then and chilled and relaxed. And all of the presenters, there was a variety of different people talking about each of the exhibitions, did so in a way that drew you into the exhibition, didn't make you feel outside of it in any way, and prompted some great questions. And also it's clear that the gallery is partnering with some interesting other organisations, some of whom spoke as presenters, and the whole thing was a very powerful experience that I'll remember for a long time.
Yeah, so that slide just sort of highlights the value of creating that conversational style, and also inviting other voices into the gallery to sort of break down barriers in terms of talking about art, whereas the curated interviews, maybe sometimes people can find perhaps too academic, or like they're being told the information rather than it being conversational. It's really important to have that sort of multitude of voices, and invite our community partners and incorporate them into the galleries in other ways to speak about the art and create those conversations with our audience members. So just to finish, I'm going to round up with some of the online and additional accessible measures that we take as a gallery at Nottingham Contemporary. So this is a screenshot of one of our exhibitions that we currently have, and it's just to highlight the additional materials that we give around the exhibition. So we also publish the exhibition notes in the 3 most spoken language outside of English, which are local to Nottingham. So that's Polish, Arabic and Urdu, as well as the large print exhibition notes and wall text. And as I mentioned with Carolyn's, we've also started translating to Braille as well to make sure there's full accessibility across all of our exhibition material. We also give an access statement, so something else to think about is for people visiting the institution. It can be, for some people, it can be an intimidating experience to travel or visit a gallery, so we want to give as much information as possible beforehand. So if they need to know sort of what facilities are on site, or if perhaps they have a specific requirement, like they need a hearing loop, they know how to contact us here. And so they also know what will be available for the event. And as you can imagine, we still have the ongoing COVID measures as well, in case that's a concern for our visitors also. Something else we also produce is, I showed the images of the prints that we were selling to fund the primary schools earlier at our reception desk. Just to the left of those, we have an access wall, which also has sort of large print notes, easy read materials, anything that visitors with access needs could possibly need. We also have the physical printout of the large print notes, as well as the exhibition materials in different languages. And so as part of that accessibility wall, we also have these cards, which are communication cards and are a visual means of non-verbal communication. So visitors can use our communication cards to ask for directions or help within the building. And all they have to do is show one of the cards to a member of the Nottingham Contemporary staff. And so we have them for multiple things. I just chose one for the lift as an illustration, but if they need to where sort of like the lockers are, the bathrooms are, anything like that, but maybe they're deaf or they have speaking issues, they can take the card and a member of staff will be able to show them where to go, just to facilitate ease of communication and make sure that our visitors have the best experience possible. And then this is also an example of sort of our communication across social media. So this is a workshop by Salvador Dalí that we held last weekend. And so when communicating with our audience across social media, it's really important to show a visual image of what the event is like, so they know what they're coming to, and do something called chunking with the text. So you'll see here it's broken up into sort of shorter sentences, as well as emojis to break up the text with sort of clear highlights of when the event's happening, how you book it, and an image description as well, for anyone with a visual impairment. Something else we have too on the website is this accessibility mode tool. So anyone with different needs that wants to access the website, they can do high contrast, have it read to them, certain areas highlighted, that sort of thing. Anything which will help access with our online materials is accessible via this function of the website. I encourage you to play around with it if it's something you are interested in bringing to your own institution. This is just a screenshot of our current exhibitions with the accessibility bar showing. But it's also really important to include it for anyone trying to access our information online. And we also try and document as many of the performances and talks as possible, along with captioning, just to make all of our events as accessible for everyone as we possibly can, even if you can't attend in person. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope everyone found it interesting. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about anything I've presented on, or about the institution in general. Or maybe it's too much information and no one has any questions yet.
Thank you so much, Philippa, for sharing with us the amazing work of Nottingham Contemporary. There was a lot of information. Thinking about Balkans context, I just wanted, I know that you mentioned a lot of stuff about accessibility, but keeping in mind that the budgets here for museums, not only in Albania, but in Balkans, are not that much. And we usually in national museums, but also typological museums or private museum, the staff is in a very, like there are only a few people working. What are the main accessible things, if I can say, for a place to become accessible?
I would say creating good sort of audience interactions and just providing a welcoming environment to your visitors. So I think that's sort of getting people into the gallery in the first place is probably, and creating an environment where people feel comfortable, I would say is, and then if there are certain things that your audience feel like they need, you're then able to respond to it as an institution. For example, with the walkthroughs, we've started providing BSL to all of them, regardless of if there's a BSL user there. because there was an incident where an audience member came and it wasn't available. So we thought, oh, we should actually put that in place every time. So rather than sort of focusing on the financial, it's more of how you can be of use to your audience and having them feel comfortable. And some of the measures I mentioned, like the communications cards, I'm pretty sure those are available as sort of like a PDF just to download. So there are sort of like cheaper access measures. I think that Nottingham Contemporary is, as an institution, is extremely focused on putting those measures in, and therefore puts the budget behind it. But there are measures that can be taken that you don't necessarily sort of have to have huge financial backing for.
Okay, thank you. If you have any question, please unmute yourself and yeah, start to talk, or if you can write the question on the chat and I can read it for you.
Has anyone visited in person, and so has a better idea of what I was trying to describe?
There is a comment from Natalia Gudkova. She's from Ukraine, and she says that, hello, thank you for the amazing presentation.
Thank you, Natalia. I'm glad you enjoyed it. No, obviously too much information. It's all.
Yeah, I will just share the link of the website of Nottingham Contemporary on this chat. So if you want to check for more information for the exhibitions and programs that Nottingham Contemporary has, please check this link.
Yeah.
Another comment from Irena saying, thank you, Philippa. Thank you, MuseumsFORALL.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you so much, Philippa, for spending some time with us and sharing a lot of information about accessibility.
Yeah.
I know from now also MuseumsFORALL will start using a lot of them for the
yeah,
website.
I was going. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was going to ask what you currently had in place, or if anything is transferable, or if it's just us that sort of works in this way. But I guess if it's a relatively new institution, it's
yeah, it's
work in progress.
Yeah, it's also valid for our institution. Also, I remember this last thing that you said about the website, and we are doing we are planning to do our new website now. So there are some details there that help us a lot. Also other things, but this is one of the last ones that I remember. Let's see if there is any questions. Oh, greetings from Balkan Museum Access Group. Irena from Balkan Museum Access Group. Catherine has said thank you for sharing the link of the Nottingham Contemporary. Comments, yeah, thank you a lot. It was really interesting. Hi, Irena, do you have something to say?
I have not good connection.
Okay.
I think we can hear you okay.
I just want to say, yeah. Thank you for presentation, Philippa, and
You're
thank
welcome.
you, MuseumsFORALL, for invitation.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We will send you an email with the recording and also with the next talk. Thank you so much, Philippa, and thank you, Nottingham Contemporary. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Okay, bye, everyone.